Hello everyone, I'm Philip and I'll be presenting my paper titled Why Are Ghanaian Students Patronizing Chinese Universities? So for most years, China had always been known as a major source of international students. But in recent years, the trend is changing. China actually has become a major hub or a major host of international students. In 2019, the number of international students in China was close to 500,000. And this basically was one of the interesting facts that really appealed to me and really spurred me to really consider international student mobility, specifically in relation to China. Now, amongst the African student population in China, it's interesting to know that Ghanaian students actually are the most amongst this population. Students from Ghana are the most amongst the African students pursuing higher education in China. This is particularly also interesting in the fact that Ghana is a relatively small country compared to a country like Nigeria, which has a population of over 200. Ghana, over 200 million. Ghana has a population of a little above 30 million. So if you compare the population of these two countries, it really becomes interesting. What really could be the appealing factors which are driving Ghanaian students to really come to China in their numbers, such that they exceed all other countries in Africa in terms of the number of students from these African countries who are pursuing their higher education studies in China. This basically were the reasons that really spurred me up and ignited my interest to consider this particular study. So basically, this is the overview that the presentation would basically follow. Just some standard facts. There are 212 tertiary institutions in Ghana. Of this number, 10 are private universities, 10 are public universities, beg your pardon, 10 are public universities, 6 are technical universities. If I say technical universities, they are basically an upgraded form of polytechnics. Okay, so they are limited in terms of the programs they offer. They are not full-fledged functioning universities. They are basically an upgraded polytechnics. And then there are 81 private universities, but amongst these 81 private universities, only 4 are chartered universities. Chartered university, if a private university is chartered, it means they have been given the rights or the authority to autonomously award their own certificates to their students who enroll in the university. For private universities that are not chartered, it means they would have to be affiliated to other public or chartered universities, so that at point of graduation, the certificate can be awarded by the universities they are affiliated to until these private universities are chartered to get to a stage where they can also autonomously award their university their degrees. So basically, it may seem high, 81, but only 4 qualify to award their own degrees. And it basically means these 4 are the ones that students would basically want to enroll in if they want to enroll in a private institution or a private university in Ghana. So basically, these are the numbers. And when we compare these numbers to the rising enrollment, tertiary enrollment in Ghana, it basically paints a picture that tertiary enrollment in Ghana would actually be very competitive, because these numbers are not that much, but we see that the number of students entering into the tertiary education is quite rising. And I believe these are some of the factors that really stimulate or urge students to consider schooling outside China. The literature on student mobility is really influenced or really hinges on the push-pull model. The push-pull model basically postulates that when students are making a choice on where to school, they are basically influenced by push and pull factors. The push factors are the forces or those factors that drive students to consider schooling away from their home country, while the pull factors are those that actually appeal to students to settle on a particular country or institution. And in recent years, we have seen a rising number of studies trying to really assess what really influences students to make a choice on their particular university or a particular country as their choice destination to pursue higher education studies. So basically, this study basically adds up to this growing number of studies which are also growing in recent times, and basically to give enlightenment on the various factors that influence students' choice of tertiary education. Recently, Ahmed and Shah released a study on China, why students are patronizing Chinese universities, which is basically similar to what I intend to do in this study. And they found out that the quality of the environment, the learning environment in China, and the quality of academic staff, plus the scholarship opportunities available, and the quest for international education, plus the students' desire to actually learn the Chinese language are the major factors that really draw students from outside China to come to China to pursue their studies. Now, my study is definitely similar to theirs, but mine is different in two significant ways. First, my sole focus is on Ghanaian students. I believe the factors that would drive students from a country like China will be very much different from the factors that would drive a student from a country like US. So I believe looking at the really influencing factors on Ghanaian students is very much desired. And then secondly, I also focus on the admission results of these students who are in China, of these Ghanaian students who are in China. I inculcate the admission results they received from the non-Chinese universities they applied to. I focus on this to just make some inference to see if that could also help to explain why these students are considering Chinese universities. Basically, it's an entirely survey study, very much descriptive. And basically, the target population were the Ghanaian students who were schooling in recognized Chinese universities. And I basically sample out Chinese universities that were enrolled on the 211 or 985 project. This project basically selects Chinese universities and gives them extra attention in terms of finance or any other support to groom them to become world-class universities. So basically, every university on the 211 or 985 project in China is a very much recognized university by the Chinese government. Amongst these universities enlisted on this project, I settle on these universities that have at least 10 Ghanaian students to involve them in the study. So at the end of the day, I ended up with 6 Chinese universities who had at least 10 students enrolling in the various universities. And through snowball sampling, I basically was able to get an online questionnaire filled by a total of 135 students from these various universities. The questionnaire was basically set on the push-pull model and basically was situated to model to follow what was used by Ahmad in his study. It's basically split into 2 major sections. The demographic section, which captured the demographic profile of the respondents, and then the main part, which captures 28 push or pull factors that could have influenced the student's choice of Chinese university. Okay, so I present the profile of the various respondents that participated in the study. Majority of them were male. Majority of them were also in their 20s. And interestingly, majority were also pursuing their postgraduate study. Continuing, we realize that majority of them are also on a scholarship, either partial scholarship or a full scholarship. It's key to take note of this, that majority of them, amongst these students, only around 16% are self-financing students. The remaining are enrolled in one scholarship or the other. Majority of them also had previously schooled in Ghana before coming to China. Okay, so I basically present the results, the descriptive results. I make use of the mean value of their various responses to the various questions or various factors that were enumerated. So this is the panel A of the results. Panel A basically focuses on the country factors, the factors about China that actually appeal to these students. And looking through, you realize that better quality of education in China and the fact that China is a safe place to reside were the 2 major factors that really appealed to Ghanaian students in deciding to come to China to pursue their higher education studies. These 2 factors basically had a mean score of above 3.8 out of a maximum of 5, the mean score for this was 3.8, basically showing that students really were drawn by these factors. There are other few, other few factors which also scored the mean score of above 3, which is the better employment opportunities after school, and then the low cost of living in China. But certainly the better quality of education in China and the fact that China is a safe place to reside are what actually stands out amongst the country factors. Next, I present about the responses on the institutional factors. A quick look shows that students actually really deem institutional factors much more important than country factors. If we check through the mean scores, you realize that we have a number of mean scores going above 4. For the previous table that was presented, the highest mean score was around 3.8, approximately 3.9. But here, for the institutional factors, we see mean scores going above 4, showing that students really are much more attracted by the various institutional factors. And amongst these factors, what really stood out as appealing or important factors to students were the scholarship availability, and then the availability of desired programs of study, then modern educational facilities. These were the 3 top ranked factors by the respondents of this study. Other factors that also had a mean score or above 4 was the quality, faculty, and staff, and then the university certification, which is highly recognized. This basically means Ghanaian students see that Chinese universities certification is actually highly recognized than what they can get should they school back home in Ghanaian universities. Next, I present the findings or the mean scores on the experiential factors. The findings show that students' desire to experience international education was the most important experiential factor that compelled them to settle on Chinese universities. Then the last panel presents what students think about the recommendations they received. Students indicate that the recommendations they receive from family or friends or relatives in China are what matters most amongst all the recommendations they received in prior to settling to come to China. So let me present a quick overview or a highlight of the findings so far. So for country factors, it shows that the better quality of education in China and the fact that China is a safe place to live are what appeals to Ghanaian students. For institutional factors, the availability of desired program of study, the modern educational facilities, and scholarship availability are the appealing traits of the institutions or the universities. Then for experiential factors, what really stood out for these students are the questions experience international education, and then recommendations from relatives or friends living in China is what also meant a lot to them. Now, if you check through these factors, you realize that these factors can easily be experienced should someone decide to school in a reputable institution in a place like the US or the UK or Australia. You could virtually get almost all these factors present in recognized institutions in some of these countries. So what then makes China quite different from these countries? What then still was the extra edge that made these students settle on China and not on those schools in the US, the UK, or other places? That is where the analysis on the admission result actually comes in. So from the graph here, we see that of the students that participated in the study, 101, approximately 75% of them said China wasn't their first choice destination. Approximately 75% of them said China wasn't their first choice destination. And then of these students who are currently schooling in China, when they were applying to their Chinese universities, where they are schooling now, 85 of them, about 63% of them, also actually applied to non-Chinese universities in other countries. Now, amazingly, amongst this number that applied to other universities, you realize that this was basically the feedback they received from the non-Chinese universities they applied to in other countries. Okay. Initially, I presented in the table and we realized that amongst the people schooling in China here, about 16% of them are self-funding. All the rest are actually on scholarship, either partial scholarship or full scholarship. But you realize that when they apply to the non-Chinese universities in other countries, you realize that actually 16 of them didn't receive any admission offer. 34 amongst these people, 34 amongst them didn't, just received a self-financing offer. 30 amongst them received partial scholarship, and only a meager amount of 5 received full scholarship. Okay, I think these figures actually speak a lot. Okay, we have a situation where for those schooling in China, majority of them are enrolled in scholarship in one way or the other. But when these same people had applied to other non-Chinese universities in other countries, only 5 received a full scholarship, and only 30 received partial scholarship. All the remaining people who applied either didn't receive admission offer or had only self-financing offers. Now, these students were further asked about their thoughts, okay, whether they believe gaining admission in China is relatively easier compared to the non-Chinese university they had applied to, or compared to other countries, which is relatively easier. And we have a mean score of 4 in agreement that gaining admission in China is relatively easier. Now, comparing this feedback to the graph I just presented earlier on, basically gives us room to make some inferences that it's worthy to accept or to propose that Ghanaian students mostly enroll in these Chinese universities after they missed out on their prioritized university that they applied to, probably because they didn't get a scholarship offer, or probably because they didn't get an admission. And also, we can infer that gaining admission in Chinese universities is actually relatively easier, because you realize that majority of the students who are schooling here actually didn't get their desired offer. Either they didn't get the scholarship offer they desired for, or some even were not admitted when they applied to the non-Chinese university. So it's kind of mixed meaning, and it's kind of cogent to try to assert or infer that then it basically means that gaining admission in Chinese universities is relatively easier compared to non-Chinese universities, probably in the US, in the UK. And this could be the main spurring factor that is really urging Ghanaian students to actually settle for Chinese universities. So basically, trying to put everything together, the survey basically reveals that institutional factors are actually the most appealing factors to Ghanaian students. The availability of the various desired programs, the scholarship opportunities, and the educational facilities they have access to in China are significant appealing traits of Chinese universities. And then secondly, the feedbacks from these students basically makes it cogent to reason that Chinese universities are actually being considered as second fiddle, where these Ghanaian students basically settle for these Chinese universities after most of them have missed out on their prioritized universities in other countries because probably they didn't get admission or they didn't get a scholarship offer, and then they settle for these Chinese universities as their second option. So basically, these are the major findings. I still believe there is room to still do much in-depth study to be able to confirm this inference that Chinese universities are second fiddle universities, at least in relation to the choice of these Ghanaian students. I believe maybe much more in-depth study may be needed to have a firm proposal on that. But basically, this is just basically the state of affairs that the survey basically reveals about why Ghanaian students are actually patronizing Chinese universities. Thank you so much.